those of us gathered here today and those of us watching from home, never in our lives have we lived in a time when we face a dark and difficult truth that is the reality of today. We live in a country that has replaced hope with despair, and the promise of tomorrow seems bleaker each and every day. This administration has thrown children in cages, militarized our southern border, defended a tyrannical regime which murdered a dissident journalist, and he continues to call our free press the enemy of the people. However, this cruel reality is not new to some. Like my mother, Dahaba Sheikh Mohamud, I was born in Mogadishu, Somalia, during the Somali Civil War, a conflict which took the life of my father and older brother. She could have given in and accepted her fate, but she decided to live on and fight for her children. We were determined to prevail in the face of despair. She walked through the desert with me pressed to her chest. She refused to give up. These are the moments that try the human soul, where the road ahead seems too difficult to walk. In these moments, we choose to reject fear and push harder than ever. This is how we will create a better world for all of us. Just as my mother showed us the way out, Bernie Sanders is showing us the way forward. Today, we as a collective will decide the future we live in. To this administration who traffics in hate, bigotry, transphobia, Islamophobia, and every type of ism, I say to you, we are coming. Count your days. Those in power have said Bernie's time has passed, but look around you today. Look at this energy. Look at this enthusiasm. We are not done. Now is our time. The future is ours. This is our fight to win. And not only are we going to win, we're going to slam dunk and break the backboard. I believe rising tides lift all boats, and that we are stronger when we row together in the same direction. I am proud to stand with Senator Bernie Sanders because he makes me believe in the promise of America. The same promise that brought my mother here to this country. As I look across this room, I see the true faces of America. We are a nation whose diversity is not our weakness, but our strength. A nation who just doesn't promise greatness, we deliver. We cannot accept incremental changes. We will not support those who divide us with hate and racism. We will dismantle systems of oppression, and we will rekindle the spirit of this grassroots movement. And together, we will win. Thank you, Iowa. And it is with great pleasure I get to introduce you to my good friend, Vanessa Marcano Kelly.
Buenos días! Good morning! My name is Vanessa Marcano Kelly. I'm originally from Caracas, Venezuela. And just 2 days ago, after many years, visas, and expensive immigration fees, I became an American citizen. was a proud day for me as I got to reflect on the American values that make me love and fight for this country and for our people. Compassion, inclusion, diversity in all its forms, social justice, and true democracy. When I first heard of Bernie's message, I felt he spoke to me directly. He's an authentic fighter for grassroots people. He seeks to lead with the voice of the marginalized, those fellow Americans whose participation gets drowned out by a billionaire class and whose dreams have been crushed by our many broken systems. That's why we are here today in an unprecedented campaign of real people, together, united in the struggle alongside a man who carries each and every one of us in his heart and in his project for a better future. As a newly minted voter, I am inspired as I join my fellow Iowans in this historic movement for our United States. Bernie, amigo, el pueblo está contigo. The people are with you, my friend. Please help me give a warm Iowa welcome to the people's candidate, Senator Bernie Sanders!
Thank you, Des Moines. Thank you. Thank you all for coming out on this beautiful morning. See, I feel right at home, right back in Vermont, same weather. Let me begin by thanking D'Artagnan Brown and Head On Loaded for their music. Let me thank Michael Beasley for her rendition in the national anthem. Let me thank Abshir Omar for that great introduction. And Vanessa Marcano Kelly for her wonderful words. We had the opportunity to meet yesterday. Thank you. And thank you, Des Moines. I want to just start off with a little story. 4 years ago or so, we were wondering whether a run for the presidency was something that we should do. You know, we had very little support, very little money, very little name recognition. And we came to Des Moines. We came right here to Des Moines, and I'll never forget it. In town, not a great day as I recall, and it was just a very, very large turnout. And there was a lot of support. And the word then was run, Bernie, run. Carry that progressive message. And that had an impact on me that day in Des Moines. So I want to thank Des Moines. I want to thank Iowa for all of the support that we got. And I want to tell you a little bit about how this campaign differs from other campaigns. And that is, I am going to be as honest as I can, not only with the people in Iowa, but with the people of America, in explaining what we have to do. Sometimes it bores the media, I understand it. But notwithstanding that, we're going to be straightforward and honest. And what this campaign is about, yes, obviously we're here to win the Democratic nomination. And in that regard, I want to say a word about some of the other candidates throughout there, because I know many of them. Many of them are in the Senate with me. Many of them are friends. Without exception, they are good people. And I hope very much two things. Number one, that the nature of our campaign is not belittling people, is not opposition research, is not attacking other people, but is a serious discussion about the important issues facing the American people. That's what this Democratic... And the second point that I want to make is that I am going to work as hard as I can, and I think we stand a really good chance of winning this nomination. But if we do not win, I will strongly support the Democratic nominee and hope and believe that others feel exactly the same way. Donald Trump must be defeated. But the other point that I want to make, which maybe does distinguish us a little bit from some of the other campaigns, and that is we want to win the nomination, we want to win the general election, but I am going to need your help, not just through the campaign process. We are going to need your help the day after we get inaugurated. Now, why is that? Why is that? The answer is that the powers that be, the people who control the economic and political life of this country, have so much money, have so much power, that no president alone, not the best president, not the most well-intentioned president, can do it alone. We need a grassroots movement of millions of Americans. Okay? And that is why I am delighted to see the signs, Bernie, and hear you yelling out Bernie. But it ain't Bernie. It's not me. It is us together. So we got a long, hard struggle. Because I'm not running for president just to win. We are running to transform this country. And our job is to create an economy and a government that works for all of us, the children, the elderly, the working people of this country, and not just the 1%. And as Abshir and Vanessa earlier said, we welcome you to a campaign which says loudly and proudly that the underlying principles of this campaign and our government will not be greed, will not be kleptocracy, will not be hatred or lies. The underlying principles of our government will not be racism, will not be sexism, will not be xenophobia, will not be homophobia, will not be religious bigotry. That is not what the American people want. That is not what we are about, and we are going to end that ugly type of government. The principles of our government, and I use the word our, will revolve around justice. Justice. That means economic justice. We're not going to continue a system that allows the very rich to get richer while 3/4 of the children in the Des Moines public schools are on free or reduced school lunch programs. Principles that we will operate on are not just economic justice, but social justice, racial justice, and environmental justice. And that means that in Des Moines, in Iowa, in Flint, Michigan, when people turn on their water taps, they get clean drinking water. And today, I want to welcome you to a campaign which tells the very powerful special interests who control so much of our economic and political life that we will no longer tolerate the greed that is destroying the middle class of this country. And this is not an issue that is talked about enough in media or in the Congress, but that greed has resulted in the United States of America having more income and wealth inequality than at any time since the 1920s, and more income and wealth inequality than almost any major country on earth. This is an issue we will deal with. This is a moral issue. This is an economic issue. I do not believe that the American people are content when we have a situation in which three families own more wealth than the bottom half of the American people. 3 families own more wealth than the bottom half of the American people at the same time as 20% of our children are living in poverty, at the same time as veterans put their lives on the line to defend us are sleeping out on the streets, and at the same time as senior citizens in Iowa and Vermont cannot afford the prescription drugs they need. We will no longer accept the reality of 46% of all new income going to the top 1%, while millions of Americans are forced to work 2 or 3 jobs just to survive. And over half of our people are living paycheck to paycheck. You know what that means? That means if your car breaks down tomorrow, you don't know how you're going to get to work. And if you don't get to work, you're going to get fired. And if you get fired, you can't take care of your kids. It means that when you live paycheck to paycheck and your child gets sick, and maybe you can't afford that high deductible, what happens to your kid? Now, when Donald Trump shut down the government, 800,000 American workers lost their paychecks. And many of those folks were hurting. Well, I don't come from a billionaire family. My parents didn't give me a $200,000 a year allowance when I was 3 years old. My family knew what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck. I know where I come from, and I will never forget that. And the time is long overdue when we had a government, a president, and a Congress who stood up for the working class of this country and not just the billionaires. And to the young people, I want to say this. We will not accept a situation in which, in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, unless we change it, and we will, our younger generation will have a lower standard of living than their parents. They're going to earn, on average, lower wages than their parents. They're going to have higher debt. They're going to have more problems trying to get a house, to buy a house. They're going to have less mobility. That ain't right. Now, I have 4 children and I have 7 very beautiful grandchildren. It is not acceptable to me that we have downward mobility in this country. Our campaign is about moving our people up, not down. But it's not only that we have an economy which over the last 40 years has seen the middle class of this country shrink, real wages go down. We also, related to that, have a corrupt political system which allows billionaires to buy elections. So it is not surprising that you got a president and a Congress who give tax breaks to billionaires and then want to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. So together we are going to change that political system. Yes, we are going to overturn Citizens United. We have the radical idea that what American democracy is about, what so many brave men and women fought and died for, was one person, one vote, not billionaires spending hundreds of millions of dollars on elections. And today I want to say a very special thanks to the people of Iowa. In 2016, this is where the political revolution began, right here in Iowa. Thank you. When I first came here to campaign in 2015, not a whole lot of people knew who the junior senator from Vermont was. Very few in the media took our campaign seriously, and we were at 3% in the polls. Further, the ideas, the agenda that we were talking about were considered by establishment politicians and mainstream media to be radical and extreme. Remember that? These were ideas that supposedly nobody in Iowa and nobody in America would support. So we came here and we said we need to raise the minimum wage to a living wage. Oh, but the establishment said, Bernie, that's a radical idea. You can't double the federal minimum wage. We said that guaranteeing health care to all is a right, not a privilege. Oh, and they said, too radical, not something the American people want. We said that we need to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure, create 15 million jobs by investing $1 trillion. They said, no, that's too much money, can't be done. We said that we must aggressively combat climate change. Too radical. We said we have got to reform our broken criminal justice system and our immigration system. Too radical, Bernie. Nobody wants to hear that. We said that Democratic candidates should not be having super PACs and relying on millionaires for their campaign funds. Too radical, Bernie. We need money from the rich. We said ending the power of superdelegates at the Democratic convention. Too radical, Bernie. It's the way we've always done it. Well, a funny thing happened in Iowa over the course of that year. On caucus night, we didn't win 3% of the vote. We won 50% of the vote. And half of the pledged delegates. And that great start here in Iowa allowed us to win victories in 22 states, 13 million votes, over 1,700 delegates at the Democratic Convention, and most importantly, for the future of this country, we ended up getting more votes from young people, black and white and Latino, Asian American, Native American. We won more votes from young people than Clinton and Trump combined. And by the way, those radical ideas that we talked about 4 years ago, well, today virtually all of those ideas are now supported by a majority of the American people. And they are ideas that Democratic candidates from school board to president are now campaigning on. Thank you, Iowa. Iowa helped. In 2016, Iowa helped begin the political revolution. Now, as we move to 2020, our job is to complete that revolution. Now, today, as we begin our campaign here in Iowa, we say to the private health insurance companies, whether you like it or not, the United States will join every other major country on earth and guarantee health care to all people as a right. You know, just yesterday, I met with some folks from around the state, and among other things, we talked about health care. We talked about the lack of access for mental health, for example. We talked about the high cost of prescription drugs. One story, I mean, this just tells you how dysfunctional and crazy the current system. We talked to a young lady. Young lady was pregnant, and she had a job. She couldn't get Medicaid because she was making, quote unquote, too much money. So she had to quit her job. Quit her job in order to get health care, being a pregnant woman. And then she had to deal with the fact that her employer, you know, some employers around the state do not hire people for 40 hours a week. They hire people for 34 hours a week. And you don't get health care. There's one of them. And you don't get health care there. Bottom line here, in terms of health care, and I want everybody here to know it. We today pay almost twice as much per capita on health care as do the people of any other country. We are spending a fortune on health care. For your average American family of four, that family is spending $28,000 a year on health care. How insane is that? And yet, despite that, we end up with 30 million people who have no health insurance, and many of you are underinsured with high deductibles and high copayments. Is that right? And meanwhile, after all of that, our life expectancy is lower than most other countries, and our health care outcomes in many cases are worse. Now, here is a very radical idea. You ready for a really radical idea? All right. The goal of health care must be to provide quality care to all, not have a situation where insurance companies make billions of dollars in profit. Here is how crazy this system is. 30 million, no health insurance, many of you underinsured. But in 2017, we got some good news. Good news. The top 65 healthcare CEOs made $1.7 billion in compensation. The guy who's the CEO of United Health Group, a gentleman named David Wickman, he had a pretty good year. He made $83 million in compensation. So we have a radical idea that our health care dollars should go into disease prevention. They should go into making sure that we have enough doctors and nurses, and that those doctors and nurses are living in areas where people today do not have access to medical care. That we have enough dentists in this country so people can go to the dentist's office and get the care they need. The goal of a rational healthcare system is not to make insurance companies billions in profits and CEO compensation for their executives off the wall. So we say to the health insurance industry, yes, we will pass a Medicare for All single-payer program. And by the way, Medicare is a very strong program that our seniors enjoy. But we have to improve Medicare. Today, Medicare does not cover dental care, does not cover hearing aids, does not cover eyeglasses. Under our Medicare for All system, we are going to cover those benefits for our seniors. And today we say to our very good friends in the pharmaceutical industry, that was a joke, that you will no longer charge the American people the highest prices in the world by far for the medicine they need. And let me just tell you a story, which I have never forgotten. Way back in 1999, where I was a congressman from Vermont, we organized a busload of women, and they were mostly working-class women struggling with breast cancer. And we got on that bus and we went up to Montreal, Canada. And we went up there not for a holiday tour. We went up there to buy the medicine that these women desperately needed. And I will never forget, as long as I live, being in the pharmacy in Montreal and seeing these women buying a widely prescribed a prescription drug called tamoxifen, which is used for breast cancer. They paid 1/10 of the price for the same exact medicine they were paying in Vermont. 10% of the price. And tears were coming down their eyes. The American people are sick and tired of a situation where last year the 5 major pharmaceutical companies made $50 billion in profits, while 1 out of 5 Americans cannot afford the medicine their doctors prescribe. So let me tell the pharmaceutical industry, you can spend all the money you want on 30-second ads against us. You can do all the lying you want, but we are going to lower prescription drug costs in this country. And today we say to Walmart, owned by the wealthiest family in America, we say to the fast food industry, McDonald's and Burger King and Wendy's, and we say to other low-wage employers, stop paying your workers starvation wages. Here in Iowa and in states throughout this country, there are working people trying to make it on $8, $9, $10 an hour, and you know what? You cannot live in dignity on $8, $9, $10 an hour. So yes, we are going to raise the minimum wage in this country to a living wage, $15 an hour. And yes, because we understand that unions are the means by which workers have dignity on the job, we're going to make it easier for workers to join unions, not harder. And I want to give you some really good news, which is taking place as we speak. 4 years ago, when I was here in Des Moines, and we talked about the idea of raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, it seemed like an impossible dream. That's more than double where the minimum wage in Washington is right now. Well, since then, I am proud to tell you that 5 states in this country have already raised the minimum wage to $15 an hour. And just a few days ago, the U.S. House Committee on Labor and Education reported out a bill that will raise the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. And I believe that bill will in fact pass the House, and it's going to come to the Senate. And I need you to tell Senators Grassley and Ernst that people cannot make it on $8 an hour. And today, we say to the American people that we will rebuild our crumbling infrastructure. And that is our roads, our bridges, our rail systems, our subways, our airports, our water systems, and our wastewater plants. And when we do that, when we rebuild our infrastructure from coast to coast, we can put up to 15 million people to work in good-paying jobs. And let me be clear, when I talk about infrastructure and clean water, we are talking about strengthening clean water laws so that corporate polluters stop poisoning the drinking water that communities in Iowa and across this country rely on. Whether you live in Flint, Michigan, or whether you live in Iowa, when you turn on that tap, you should expect that the water that comes out is clean and drinkable. You know, there is an issue that does not get talked about enough, and that is how this country treats its little ones, how we treat our children. We should be ashamed that in the wealthiest country on earth, we have one of the highest poverty rates for children of any country. Right now, in Vermont, in Iowa, and all across this country, we have a child care system that is not working for the parents, not working for the children, not working for the child care workers. And that is why we understand that 0 through 4 are the most important years of a human being's life, and we are going to create a high-quality, universal child care system in this country. And today we say to the young people that we want you to be able to get the best education you can, regardless of your income. We live in a very competitive global economy, and we will not be successful unless we have the best educated workforce in the world. And that means, and again, a few years ago, this was a radical idea, not so radical now. We are going to make public colleges and universities tuition free. And for those young people who don't want to go to college, we're going to make sure they get the training they need. They want to be carpenters. They want to be welders. They want to be steel workers. We need those workers, and we need them to get the training they need. And the other thing that we are going to do is stop the punishment of millions of people who today are dealing with outrageous levels of student debt. How many people in this room are dealing with student debt right now? There you go. You should not be punished for trying to get an education. I remember, I think it was here in Des Moines, as a matter of fact, I was giving a speech talking about this issue, and I mentioned that in Burlington, Vermont, I met a young physician who told me that she was $300,000 in debt, having gone to medical school, and I couldn't believe it, $300,000. One young woman came up to me, and she said, "Bernie, I just graduated dental school. I'm $400,000 in debt." All right? That is insane. When people have high levels of debt, they can't afford a car, they can't afford a house, can't afford to have kids. We are going to substantially lower student debt in this country. Now, my Republican colleagues in Washington, they want to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. So we've got some bad news for them. We understand that if you are a senior citizen in Des Moines or in Vermont, you can't make it on $13,000 or $14,000 a year Social Security. So we are not going to cut Social Security benefits. We are going to raise Social Security benefits. And today, you know, Donald Trump embarrasses us every day. And, you know, whether you like Trump's ideas, you don't, whether you're conservative, moderate, progressive, I don't think many Americans are comfortable with the fact that we have a president who is a pathological liar. So when Donald Trump and the fossil fuel industry tell us that climate change is a hoax. Trump is lying again. Climate change is not a hoax, but is an existential threat to the future of our country and the entire planet. And let me be as clear as I can be, because this issue is such magnitude, that our job together is to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel and you know, I get so tired of hearing from the lies and the obfuscation from the fossil fuel industry. They are doing very much what the tobacco industry did 50 years ago. People were smoking, including my father, 2-3 packs. People died because of heart failure. People died because of lung cancer. And the tobacco industry was saying, oh, no, it's healthy, that's not a problem. They're lying. The tobacco industry lied, and the fossil fuel industry is lying today. We are going to transform our energy system. And by the way, let me reiterate this very strongly. When we do that, when we weatherize our homes and our buildings, when we create an efficient transportation system, when we invest heavily in wind and solar, and thank you, Iowa, 40% of your electricity comes from wind. When we create a modern grid so Iowa and other states can expand sustainable energy, when we do all of those things, we create millions of good-paying jobs. But this issue of climate change, this is not just an economic issue. This is a profound moral issue. All of us have a moral responsibility to make certain that the planet we leave our children and our grandchildren is a planet that is healthy and habitable, and we will do that. And today we say to the prison industrial complex, people who make billions every year by locking up fellow Americans, we say to them that we are going to bring about real criminal justice reform. We are going to end the international embarrassment of the United States of America, our great country, having more people in jail than any other country on earth, including China. Instead of spending $80 billion a year locking up fellow Americans, we are going to invest in our young people. We're going to invest in jobs and education, not jails and incarceration. And when I'm talking about criminal justice reform, I'm talking about no more private prisons, jails, and detention centers. We're talking about ending the war on drugs, which has destroyed so many lives. And we are talking about no longer keeping people in jail because they are too poor to afford cash bail. And by the way, when we talk about criminal justice reform, we're going to change a system in which tens of thousands of people every single year get a criminal record for possession of marijuana. but not one major Wall Street executive went to jail for their illegal activity in destroying our economy. We believe in equal justice under the law, whether you are a billionaire or a working person. No, the Wall Street crooks didn't go to jail. They got $1 trillion bailout, and that is going to end. And today we say to the American people that instead of demonizing the undocumented immigrants in this country, we are going to pass comprehensive immigration reform and a path toward citizenship. We are going to provide legal status to the 1.8 million young people eligible for the DACA program. And we are going to develop a humane border policy for those who seek asylum. The United States of America is not and must never be a country which snatches babies from the arms of their mothers. And today we say to the top 1% and the wealthy, large, profitable corporations, people who have never had it so good, that under a Bernie Sanders administration, we are going to end the massive tax breaks and loopholes that they currently enjoy. Now, some of you know, and to give you an idea how absurd that situation is, some of you know that Amazon is one of the largest, most profitable corporations in America, owned by the wealthiest guy in the world. Anybody here know how much Amazon paid in federal income tax last year? You got it. Well, Mr. Amazon and Mr. Bezos. Well, Mr. Netflix and General Motors, who also pay nothing in taxes. And to all the other large corporations with all of their accountants who are putting all of their money in the Cayman Islands and other tax havens, your day is coming. You're going to start paying your fair share of taxes in this country. I'm tired of hearing about austerity for working families. We got to cut back on nutrition. We got to cut back on Social Security. We got to cut back on education. Well, we are going to end austerity for working families and bring some austerities to the 1% and the large profitable corporations. And today, we say to the military-industrial complex that yes, we're going to have a strong defense, but we do not need to spend $700 billion a year on the military. Which is more than the next 10 nations combined. We are going to invest in affordable housing. We are going to invest in education. We are not going to invest in endless wars. Brothers and sisters, we are going to win this election. I have to complete the sentence and tell you why. We're going to win this election not because we have a super PAC funded by billionaires. That ain't the way we do business. We are going to win this election because we are going to put together the strongest grassroots coalition in the history of American politics. Now, Donald Trump and his friends want to divide us up by the color of our skin, by our country of origin, by our gender, by our religion, and by our sexual orientation. We are going to do exactly the opposite. We are going to bring our people together, black and white, Latino, Native American, Asian American, gay and straight, young and old, male and female, native-born and immigrant. We are going to bring our people together for an unprecedented grassroots effort, and I am happy to tell you, we have been in this campaign, I guess, for a little bit more than 2 weeks, and media reported correctly that we've raised a lot of money in small donors, and I'm very proud of that. But I'll tell you something that I'm even more proud of, that as of today, we have over 1 million people who have signed on to this campaign. If my memory is correct, we got about 7,000 here in Iowa. We need you to add to that number. And I want to say a word about an issue that doesn't get a whole lot of discussion, and it needs to. And that is, as someone who represents the state of Vermont, one of the most rural states in America, let me be very honest with you in telling you that Congress has, for far too long, ignored the many crises facing rural America. In Iowa, in Vermont, and all over America, we have tragically seen more and more young people leave the small towns they grew up in, the small towns they love, because there are no decent paying jobs in those towns. And we intend to change that. We intend to invest in rural America so that kids can stay in the towns they love. We have seen schools and churches and community centers shut down in rural America, and once vibrant main streets become boarded up and deserted. In Vermont, in Iowa, and all across rural America, we have seen family farmers go out of business as the prices they receive for their products decline rapidly, and large agribusiness corporations and factory farming take over agriculture. We have seen rural hospitals and nursing homes shut down, and not enough doctors available to provide the quality health care that rural America deserves. Tragically, instead of seeing good jobs, quality education, and good health care coming to our rural communities, we are far too often seeing despair and depression, and a terrible increase in suicide and opioid addiction. In rural America, unbelievably, we are seeing a decline in life expectancy. Brothers and sisters, we need policies for rural America that represent the needs of working people and farmers, not agribusiness and multinational corporations. We need a federal government that will enforce antitrust laws and end that enormous consolidation that we're seeing, and I intend to appoint an Attorney General who will do just that. It is not acceptable that the top 4 packing companies control more than 80% of the beef market, 63% of the pork market, and 53% of the chicken market. And these numbers understate the reality. In many communities, there is really only one buyer, which means food producers are at their mercy. Farmers must use that corporation's feed and livestock. They must accept that corporation's costs. They must accept that corporation's lower and lower payment rates. And in many cases, the farmer doesn't even own the livestock or supplies. They are effectively contract employees who are forced to lease everything and then get paid an inadequate wage for their extremely hard work. Let me just give you a few examples. Independent pork producers here in Iowa have been put out of business, and slaughterhouse workers have seen their wages remain stagnant for 30 years. But last year alone, listen to this, the CEO of Smithfield's parent company was given a $291 million pay package. Farmers can't make it on the prices they're getting for their commodities, and this guy gets a $291 million pay packages. Brothers and sisters, we are going to end that kind of disparity. With the federal government not enforcing antitrust laws, we have seen mergers like Bayer and Monsanto approved, giving the two largest conglomerates 78% of the corn seed market. While this deal can end up further jacking up seed prices for Iowa corn farmers, the CEO of Monsanto was rewarded for engineering that deal a golden parachute worth up to $32 million. People should not be rewarded for driving family farmers off the land. Meanwhile, instead of protecting family-owned farms, federal support for agriculture is skewed toward large corporate farming. The top 10% of farms in America currently receive 77% of all federal subsidies. Our job is to protect family-based agriculture, not corporate agriculture. Bottom line is, 60% of rural counties in America are depopulating. Rural America faces serious problems in Vermont and Iowa and all over this country, and I pledge to you that if elected president, we're going to start paying attention to rural America. You know, a lot of folks who are running for president are going to be coming to your great state. And a lot of them are my friends, and they're very good people, and they're going to tell you what they believe. So let me be as specific as I can, not talking broad generalities, but tell you what we together must do when we get to the White House. And you heard me say, not me, but us. Because what I am proposing today cannot be done by any one person. It has to be done by millions of people standing together. Now, when we get to the White House, we will enact a federal jobs guarantee to ensure that everyone in this country who is able to work is guaranteed a job. If you look at all of the needs in America, from child care to rebuilding our infrastructure to climate change to taking care of the elderly, there is more than enough work to be done. Let's do it. In Iowa, in Vermont, and all over this country, there are people who are paying 40, 50, 60% of their limited incomes for housing because we don't have enough affordable housing. We're going to put Americans to work building the affordable housing that the American people need. When we are in the White House, we will move aggressively to end the epidemic of gun violence in this country. And pass the common sense gun safety legislation that the overwhelming majority of the American people want. When we are in the White House, we are not going to only address the national disparities regarding income and wealth, we're going to address the racial disparities of income and wealth. We are going to root out institutional racism wherever it exists. And not only are we going to end voter suppression, we're going to make it easier for people to vote, not harder. You know, seems to me that in America, if you are 18 years of age and a citizen, you should be registered to vote. End of discussion. When we are in the White House, we are going to protect a woman's right to control her own body. That is her decision, not the federal government's, not the state government's, not the local government's. That is a woman's decision. Make no mistake about it. What our campaign is about is not just defeating Donald Trump, as vitally important as that is. Our campaign and our government will be about taking on the incredibly powerful institutions that control the economic and political life of our country. And I am talking, let me be very specific. We are not going to change America unless we have the courage together to take on Wall Street and their illegal behavior. We are not going to pass Medicare for all unless we have the guts to take on the insurance companies and all of their money. We're not going to lower the cost of prescription drugs unless we take on the pharmaceutical industry. We're not going to lower military spending unless we take on the military-industrial complex. We're not going to protect family-based agriculture unless we have the guts to take on agribusiness. We're not going to succeed in criminal justice reform unless we take on the prison industrial complex. And we are not going to transform our energy system unless we take on the fossil fuel industry. Now, the reason why this campaign is not about me but us is that no president, not the best intentioned in the world, can take on these extraordinarily powerful forces. Without exception, all of these institutions have unlimited sums of money. They have control over the media. They have enormous influence in lobbying in Washington, D.C. Now, these guys have incredible power, and they have unlimited sums of money. but we have something that they don't have. We have the people. That's right. At the end of the day, they may have money and power, but there are a hell of a lot more of us than them. You know, after all, the 1% is 1%. We got the bottom 99%. So this is what I believe from the bottom of my heart and what this campaign is about and what our government will be about. And that is, if we stand together, if we do not allow Trump and his allies to divide us up, if we stand together as black and white and Latino, Asian American, Native American, if we stand together as gay and straight, men and women, native born and immigrant, if we stand together as rural and urban, north, south, east, and west, if we understand that there really is no such thing as a blue state or a red state, but that in every state in this country, Iowa and in Vermont, in every state in this country, the vast majority of working people are struggling hard to do well for their kids. That is the reality. Brothers and sisters, if we stand together, if we create the unprecedented grassroots movement that I believe we can create, if we win this election, which I believe we will, there is no limit to what this future for our great country can be. Let us go forward. Let us do it. Thank you all very much.
It's about to get ugly. I'm gonna knock on every door and I don't care who gon' judge me now. Cause we've been fighting nepotism, all these leaders in position, all these prisons pay attention. They don't wanna feel the burn, they try to hustle the competition. Name another